Hey, this is Steve Bloom, and you are listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cinema Geeks. I am one of your Cinema Geeks, Optimus Solo. Joining me for today's episode is Fridley Sant. Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Movie Revolt Dan. Hello.
Hey.
Hard Candy Mandy.
Oh.
Oh, geez.
What? What is that?
It's Cardi.
We were just watching the Grammys. We're not thinking logically anymore.
Oh, I was gonna say, is that like?
I've been waiting all fucking week to do that, you guys. All fucking week. I've been practicing in the car by myself.
It's pretty good.
Thank you.
I have no idea if that's what it's supposed to sound like.
Yeah, I have no idea. I wouldn't be able to judge if that was good or bad. All I've heard her do is on that Pepsi commercial. I about jumped out of my chair.
It's right in his face.
Jesus. I gotta wipe myself off here. I'm just kidding. Today we are bringing you our finale episode, I guess, or one of our finale episodes of the 2018 movie season. We're going to bring you our top 10 films of the previous year here. So we're going to do our best to kind of encapsulate what we liked about the year in film. And Dan, hearing a lot about it on film Twitter, but a pretty good year in film overall, wouldn't you say?
I think so. Like, I still have a lot of movies I have yet to catch up with. It's probably easier to not name them because there's so many. But only a few weeks ago, like, I've only watched like 20 movies that came out in 2018. But I really caught up, and again, I was like struggling to do a top 10. But now I'm like, wow, it's really deep. Like, I'm looking at my top 30, and I still have like a good 30 films to watch that have been really well received. And I'm actually think like even my top 40 is really strong. So yeah, I think it's really a really good year. I do think though, with the amount of movies that come out, it's almost impossible to have a bad year. You may not have always have like a 5-star masterpiece each year, but I think you're guaranteed to usually have, you know, a steady stream of good movies. But I don't know, like just going back, looking at some of the past years this decade, and I still think it's probably one of the strongest so far.
Yeah, definitely adding a bunch of options for our best of decade list here. A strong year, I think, according to a lot. I'm with you, Dan. I'm looking at my top 30, even top 40, and I'm like, those are still pretty strong. Like, usually I look at it and it starts to dwindle, you know, in the 20s or, you know, something like that. And this year I didn't feel that way at all. So a lot of good stuff for a lot of variety as well. So I think that was good. Amanda, how was putting your list together?
I actually feel like I wasn't as strong on as many movies this year as I have in the past couple years. I don't know if there was anything that necessarily like wowed me or floored me this year, like in a couple of the previous years, like Manchester by the Sea or The Mountain Between Us. Like there, you know, things that really kind of moved me. I don't think there was as many this year.
So when you're making your list, Amanda, are you thinking more about like the stuff that had an emotional impact with you, or kind of what do you use as a criteria for when you're trying to pick out your films?
It's something that sticks with me. So there's a lot of movies I feel like if I would rewatch, they might be higher on my list, but I'm going off of my feelings of from my experience with the film thus far. Did it stick with me? Is it something that caught me off guard and I really liked it? It was something, you know, to the other extreme that I was totally bored with and expected to love. You know, there's always a couple creepers in there, and I feel like I do have
Creepers.
Like a sleeper cell gonna come in, you know what I mean?
All right. Matt, you threw a wrench into the mix because you were at one point going to just rank us the 10 films that you saw from 2018, but you watched an 11th film?
At the end, I guess you could say it was today. I watched 2 movies. Ooh. I watched 3 movies yesterday, I guess. You know, one of them wasn't a 2018, so that doesn't count. But like, I ended up watching movies until like 6 a.m. And it has had a profound effect on my today. But I did get to knock The Grinch off of my list, which is kind of, you know, makes me feel good inside.
All right, so we're gonna get things underway. Matt's gonna lead us off, then we're gonna go Dan, Amanda, and myself, and we're just gonna work our way 10 through 1.
Before we
go
get
ahead.
started, I did have a question for you.
Yeah.
So we're all doing 10. We'll basically have 40 movies we talk about. How much crossover do you think we'll have, and do you think there'll be any movies that are on every list?
Oof. I don't think we will have a movie that's on all 4 lists. I'm gonna say.
What about Black Panther? At least one movie.
I'm gonna say that I don't think we're gonna have one film that's on all 4 of our lists.
So Kevin is a poo-pooer.
No, well, no, I shouldn't say that because I don't know what films Matt watched in the last 2 days. So maybe there is a chance for crossover. Up until that point, I know all the films that he watched.
You are going to be a snoopy.
You think you know.
But maybe I have no idea. I think there's going to be some films that definitely creep up on multiple lists, though. I can see at least probably 3 or 4 lists that I'm thinking might show up on at least one other person's list that I have ranked. So I don't know. It's always interesting at this time of year because we do somewhat, at least Amanda and myself, and I want to say Dan as well. Like, we don't do the way we've done our podcast lately, we don't do a lot of talk about current films, so it's hard to say what our take is on a lot of the films that are getting a lot of buzz or a lot of attention on a lot of other people's top 10 lists and whatnot. And Amanda and I really do not. I mean, we react to the films and we discuss the films afterwards and kind of talk about what we liked and what we didn't like. But when you put it in the big picture of all the films that you watch for an entire year, I have no idea of any of the 10 films that are going to show up on Amanda's list because we don't kind of go to that depth when we're discussing them. So it's always kind of a fun experience for me doing this because I get to kind of learn to see what films did stick with her throughout the year. Dan, what do you think?
Y'all see what he's like in movie discussions on Twitter. Why I avoid real life movie discussions with him, because it will be like the Twitter thing, but it'll be in my face. He will say that same shit to me.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
I think we'll have maybe one movie that's on our list. We'll see. I'm thinking one. I think the over/under is 1.5, and I'll say under. I think we'll name up to 30 movies. That's going to be my guess because I think there'll be multiple ones, but I think there'll be around 30 movies we'll talk about. So
the question is, who is going to be keeping track of the total films that we're mentioning?
I'm actually going to do it. I'll update
perfect.
As we go.
Awesome.
That'll add a little more fun to it.
I like it. A twist here at the last second. Matt, let's go to you for your number 10 film that you saw last year.
All right. My number 10 was The House with the Clock at Its Walls. I saw this one. It was better than The Grinch. I could say those things about it. It wasn't terrible. Like, I'm sure if I was 12, it would have been like my favorite movie of the year because there was a Spider-Man movie and Spider-Man's dope. But like, it was perfectly serviceable. It was fine. It won't last with me. 3 years from now, I probably won't remember it at all.
Amanda, you saw that one. We saw them together. Actually, what was your thoughts on that one?
It definitely had like a weird Goosebumps movie vibe to it. And not having read the original property, I had no attachment to it. So I think maybe if it was something that I had read when I was younger and seen this also when I was younger, it would have resonated a little bit more. But it just, there were some cool visuals. And, Jack Black is always funny, but it just wasn't anything like Matt said that would stick with me.
It was one of those that, like, I thought it was going one direction for the first, 10, 15, 20 minutes or whatever. And then it went, not necessarily a different direction, but it just didn't do what I thought it was going to do. It kind of threw me off a little bit, but I can see someone having fun with it. Dan, you're up next. What's your number 10?
Yeah, I did not see that one. So yeah, 10 is always the hardest people say, and I kind of agree with it because it's there's so many movies that can go within this 10 spot. And honestly, this my number 10, which is Private Life by Tamara Jenkins. It was it slowly crept up to my list more and more as I did this. I had another film at number 10, but as I was rethinking it, I ended up going with Private Life. For those that don't know, it stars Catherine Hahn and Paul Giamatti. They're a couple trying to basically have a baby, and it's kind of a hellish ride for them to go through it. And it's one of those films would fall in the dramedy category, but I think it handles it really well, and it's just very open and honest and brutal at times. It really handles that tone quite well. One of the scenes that to me sums it up pretty perfectly is there's this argument between Paul Giamatti and Catherine Hahn, and it's a common theme throughout, but they're just laying out all this personal information. They're kind of just showing how broken this whole situation has made them. They kind of putting it out there. Yeah, and then what you think is a private conversation ends up not being one. And the way it is laid out in that scene is just perfectly timed. It never overstays its welcome. You have all this drama, but there's always that comedy there as well, and it always balances that so well. And Catherine Hahn, who I always enjoyed as an actress, but I never knew that she was this talented and she could have that level of drama, be this strong of a drama actress. And Paul Giamatti is great as always. So yeah, so that's my number 10 is Private Life.
This film actually was really hard for me to watch because it's like everything's scary for a woman who wants to have kids. Like you're seeing like the worst possible shit going on in this, as far as luck with fertility, and it was too real. Not that I've had that experience, but it just seemed too real. Like it freaked me out. Like that could happen to me, and like seeing that, like I don't know, it just was really hard to see. I believe that people should see that, to see what the struggle is, but it's definitely not an easy watch.
Yeah, my wife wouldn't watch it actually because of that. She's like, you have to watch it by yourself. So,
Amanda, that brings us to your number 10.
Now I gotta move shit. Oh, you put stuff on my list here.
Yeah,
sir.
It was about to get destroyed.
Oh my lord. So my number 10 is something that we saw, I think, pretty early on, if I'm not mistaken, and that's Annihilation. I think the visuals in this movie are one that definitely made it something that I had interest in. But once I got into the film, it was, I don't know, it was confusing and not a lot was explained, and some of it was kind of slow, but just the crazy shit that went on and the sheer batshit insane visuals, I had to land this on my list.
All right, fair enough. I will save thoughts on that one. Number 10 for me, I'm going to go with a film that we actually just recently caught up with, and that is Can You Ever Forgive Me, starring Melissa McCarthy.
You got a Melissa McCarthy?
I do, and I'm happy that this film exists because I think Melissa McCarthy for too long has had a bad rap with some people, and they always she's one of those actors that they go to that they say like, oh, she just does the same shtick every time and it's the same jokes and it's blah, 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 blah. I've never really thought that about her, and I'm glad that she got the chance and took the chance to kind of show some of her other sides and some of her talent, because she is phenomenal in this and not trying to be funny. Even though there are some funny moments, she's not trying to be funny necessarily. And I just think this is it's an interesting story, obviously based on a real life person and events, and I just think that it kind of caught me off surprise. Like I had been wanting to watch it for a long time because I was interested in it from when we did our most anticipated list, and I just couldn't find it, and finally came across a way to watch it, and was very happy that I did because I thoroughly enjoyed the nuances of Can You Ever Forgive Me?
That was in my top 10 for a while, and I caught up with it not too long ago either. And yeah, it was quite good, and McCarthy is fantastic. In it too, like the way they're able to utilize her more humor side, but also she's so damaged in that film, so it's quite good.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt, back to you then for your number 9 pick.
All right, number 9. I've got Isle of Dogs. This is a Wes Anderson movie. Like it's weird. Like, I guess I've never seen any of the stop motion movies he's done. Not that he's done that many, but like Wes Anderson's one of my favorite directors. Isle of Dogs was very different from what I expect when I go into one of his movies. Not bad, like, and I think if I were a dog lover, I think there would be more to it, because like dog lovers seem almost rabid for dogs and dog content. But like ultimately, it was an enjoyable movie that I saw.
This was one that was it's hovering right around the 30 mark for me. But I think this is one of the ones maybe most on my list that I just need to be able to see again. We saw it in theater, but it was quite some time ago, obviously. And it didn't stick with me that much where I felt comfortable kind of raising it up too much. But I think that's one that could gain ground as time goes on and become, more of a loved film. But I do think that's very creative and very interesting. But like Matt, I agree. It's a little different than what you might think when you think Wes Anderson. But I don't know. I enjoyed it. I just want to see it again. Amanda, what did you think of that one?
I think it had a lot of star power behind it and some pretty cool like little storylines, and the art styles kind of changed a little bit here and there, which I appreciated. I think it had some good points. I think just the tone was so like muted, like I don't know, it was very flat. You know what I mean? Even though there was a lot going on, I feel like everybody's reaction to it was just kind of flat, which is I think is was intentional, but it just doesn't always work for me.
Okay, Dan, what do you got next?
Next on my list is another comedy, which I think sometimes when it comes to end of year list, comedies can sometimes be ignored because they're not maybe as seen as weighty or anything like that. It's also a comic book adaptation, but a different type of comic book, and it's The Death of Stalin is my number 9. And this actually, I guess, came out in the UK and in Europe last year 2017, but just in the US 2018. So I don't know, for some people it may not count, but I'm counting it. But this is from Nishi, who is the director of In the Loop that came out a few years ago, but probably most notably in the US, Veep, the HBO show. And this is this kind of political and social takedown of what happened after Stalin passed away and the insanity that occurred. And it is just remarkable how it's able to navigate that scenario. And there was like legitimately like at times slapstick humor, but then really dark and disturbing imagery as well. And Nucci is able to, I think, work well in making sure that everything works to its full potential and nothing undercuts itself. It supports itself. That humor, I think, sometimes it gives you something, a moment to breathe as you're just watching some horrific things happen, especially as it develops later on. And I'm actually a big fan of the comic book that it was based off of. It's actually I forget what the original language was, but it was a European comic book that was just recently translated last year. So I was anticipating this because I love the book, and Anucci was one of my favorite political satirists out there right now, and I think he nailed it. So it's sometimes getting ignored because it is a comic book adaptation, or the fact that it's a comic book adaptation is not part of the conversation. I think it should be, because a lot of the best parts of it were actually directly, including the opening, which is one of my favorite openings of the year, was directly taken from that book. But I think it's probably a little bit more heavy on the comedy than the source material, but I think it certainly balances it really well. So that's why it's my number 9.
I have heard nothing but good things about this one, but I have yet to catch up with it. I don't really have an excuse, but it's definitely on my list of things to catch up to later on in the year that I missed. So, Amanda, you are up next. What do you got at number 9?
I might get some heat for this one, but I had a lot of fun with this movie, and it's something that is right up my alley and hit my nostalgia buttons, and that's Predator. Predator getting beat up by bigger Predator, and a bunch of lines pulled from Predator 1 and 2. Loved it.
So your nostalgia pick for the list.
One of them.
I still haven't seen it. Like, I'm mildly curious, but I've heard so many bad things, but I get to watch it.
It's worth it, bro. It's worth it.
I think when we came out of Predator, I don't remember how many people, 4 of us. I think Amanda was the only one that was like loving her experience on that one. I'll leave it at that. For my number 9, it's going to be maybe a start of a trend of a certain theme. I guess it's going to be popping up a couple times during my top 10, but I'm going with he's 2 for 2 so far for me. Mr. Jenkins's Moonlight was phenomenal, and I thought If Beale Street Could Talk was also phenomenal. So just even though it's more of a period piece, or back in the different time period than what we're living right now. I think it's still very relevant to a lot of issues that are going on in the country. I think it's well done. I think the script is good. The acting's good. There's not much you can complain about with this film. Kind of a heart-wrenching story, and unfortunate that people have to go through things like they did in this film. But I've only seen it one time, so I'd like to be able to watch it again and dissect it a little bit more. But I think Barry Jenkins is rising to the ranks of one of the best filmmakers we have going, if not already there. So that is my number 9, If Beale Street Could Talk.
That was one of, I mentioned, one of the many that I have yet to catch up with, which I really want to. Pretty bad.
Okay. All right, Matt, back to you. What beat out Isle of Dogs for that number 8 spot?
Oh boy, you know what I just noticed? My number 8 is Ocean 8. That works out. Didn't even plan it because I don't have a whole lot of room to work here with my 12 movies, so I really couldn't get frisky with it. But Ocean's 8, I can always be sold on a good heist movie, except for my number 11, which we'll talk about if we get to that point. But like a good heist movie always gets me in. I don't need it to be a franchise movie, but I know that that's about the only way to sell some movies sometimes. I would love to, I should have saw Widows, right? Because that's another female-led heist movie that's not attached to a franchise and isn't just like hey, what if we did that movie with ladies instead of dudes? Though that I think that one was on my most anticipated list, higher than Ocean's 8, but I never got to see that one. So Ocean's 8 is my number 8 because of that.
Amanda, what did you think of Ocean's 8?
I think it was a good time. Sandy B in a little bit different role than we've seen her in the past, and I had a lot of fun with the collaboration of the cast there. I think that the little twist is kind of fun. I like that. And it had a feel-good vibe, which was great. I think Widows is definitely darker and has a darker twist, so you should definitely see that, Matt.
Dan, did you have a chance to see Ocean's 8 this year?
I did. I enjoyed the Ocean's films. They just have a nice style to them, and I thought they took on the concept of that, what we saw before with the Soderbergh films, and put a nice little twist in it. And I thought the cast was rather strong as well. But I enjoyed it for what it was.
All right, Dan, then we'll go ahead with your next pick.
So this is what I think might show up again. It's actually one I was just able to catch up with in theaters not too long ago. So it's one that may actually end up rising if I see it again, or the more I think about it. And it's one that's, I don't think there was a more hyped movie, oddly enough, by the time I went to go see it, and that's Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and it lived up to that hype. Obviously, the animated film, and I'm amazed that this movie exists for so many different reasons. I don't think this is a movie that could exist if we aren't in the comic book kind of phenomenon that we live in currently with the Marvel films and everything of that nature. That they would take the risk that they would, including having Spider-Mans from different dimensions and everything like that. But I was just surprised too about how many strong character arcs they were able to have, considering that. And yeah, some of the other characters aren't, some of them are more they're just there for comedic relief. But I thought the 3 major characters, Gwen Stacy's, Miles Morales, of course, and then Peter Parker, I thought all had interesting arcs, especially their relationship. And there's rumors that there's going to be a spinoff with Gwen Stacy's character, which I think would be fantastic, because I thought she was actually a pretty bright star within it, and even their ability to craft a pretty impressive villain with Kingpin. They did a lot with a little bit of screen time. It had a lot of heart. The animation was just unique and fantastic. How they combine all these different styles. And yeah, like I said, I'm late to the party. I think everyone saw it by the time I did, and I couldn't have been more hyped for it, considering everything that people were saying. And I walked away extremely happy with it. So it's my number 8.
I think one of the things that I heard somebody else say, it's not my original thought here, but I heard someone say on one of the other podcasts or countdowns that I was listening to, or maybe even during a movie review of this film, was the neat part of having an animation style that doesn't necessarily match up with everything we see. Like the technology is to a point where you have so many different options to do different types of animation and styles and things of that nature, where, you know, for the longest time we've kind of had more cookie cutter, you know, like all Disney films looked like this, or all this films looks like this. And it's nice to see when you get more variety, which we're getting more and more these days. So I think that was definitely a highlight for me, was just the style and animation and some of the visuals that they did on this one. Very cool. Amanda, back to you. Are we going nostalgia again, or what are we doing here with your next pick?
No, just something that's was on my most anticipated list that I kind of wanted a little bit more out of, so it's not higher up on my list, but I was still entertained, and I got the vibes that I wanted to get out of this. And this is Hotel Artemis.
All right. What about Hotel Artemis brought it up for you?
I just liked the concept, and I liked the potential, like, John Wick style action that I expected to get out of this. I didn't get as much of that as I wanted to, but I still think that it was such a cool idea that I was into it.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with this one too. I think, like you said, it could have been even that much better, but I thought it was still good. It was still entertaining and creative. A lot like John Wick, I guess, in some respects, but different enough where it could stand on its own. I had it in my top 20 still, so I definitely am with you. I like that film, and I think I like it even more. Again, if I get to this, I'm going to just keep saying this as a broken record that I want to see all these films again, which is usually not a thing I say a lot, but that's the case.
I agree. I enjoyed that as well, and I do think it's one that is not getting a lot of talk about. Like, I think a lot of people are talking like Upgrade and stuff this year, which I actually like this a lot more than Upgrade.
Me too.
And like Jodie Foster in particular, her and her relationship with Batista, who's like is becoming more and more of an impressive actor, which I never thought I would say like 10 years ago. But even Jeff Goldblum was fantastic in that. Yeah, that was a really fun movie. I mean, I guess I don't know if fun's the right word, but I thought it
entertaining. Yeah,
it took its concept, and I thought it used it really effectively compared to other films of a similar ilk.
I agree with that as well. For my number 8, again, just somewhat recently caught up with this one. I had been searching this one out as well because of the stuff that I had heard about it, and I usually like Dan Stevens and a lot of what he does. But my number 8 is Leave No Trace. I didn't expect to like this one as much as I did. Obviously, it's a story of a father and his daughter and them in their attempts to kind of live off of the grid, so to speak. And he's dealing with some stress and almost like PTSD situation and things of that nature. But I thought I did not write down the actress's name because I'm not super familiar with her. But Thomas
McKenzie.
But she was phenomenal in this, and I just thought that there was a lot of emotion here, and it's a tough situation because you can kind of see what's causing his character to kind of go through the things that he's going through, but then you're at the same time wanting, you know, what's best for his daughter and things of that nature. I just thought there's a lot to kind of chew on with this film, and it kind of stuck with me more than I thought it would after I watched it. So Leave No Trace is my number 8 film. Amanda, what did you think of that one?
I liked it. It was frustrating though, and I don't know. Like you said, it's some of the things you see that he's teaching her, you feel like are important and are pretty much lost today. But then there's also so much that she is doing without. And then when she sees how life can be on the other side, and she wants that and wants, you know, that kind of life, it's hard to see the decisions made, and hard to see two people that are so close be separated.
And I think one thing that kind of stuck with me specifically, it probably has one of the singular most emotional moments that I saw in a film at one point, with her and him kind of in the forest towards the end, and that was like heartbreaking and definitely kind of get you in the feels a little bit. So Matt, what do you got next?
All right, for my number 7, I have the second best rom-com of 2018, which is known as Venom. It's a movie about a dude who's fallen in love with a slime, but also he's got an ex-girlfriend that he kind of likes, but he likes the slime a lot more, and then they make out towards the end. It's pretty dope.
No blood in the entire freaking movie.
Well,
Makes no sense.
It's all kinds of slime. Like, it's two slime boys fighting in a slime fight. Like,
yeah, but he like was supposed to bite people's heads off and shit. They're supposed to be rolling street turds.
He like ate them entirely, like just straight up ate them.
His mouth is like a lightsaber, I guess, that it cauterizes the wound immediately.
This is my favorite movie critique and discussion I think I've seen all year.
It's got as much blood as any other romantic comedy you see has in it. Like, I don't know what you want from this.
That is awesome. All right, Venom at number 8. And Dan, you're up next. What do you got?
I gotta say, Venom was not one I anticipated hearing. There's a few movies I didn't anticipate I was talking about tonight, but hey, that's what the fun of it is. So far, I'm on what, number 7?
Mm-hmm. And
we've had no crossovers so far, but that's going to change because my number 7 is Leave No Trace as well. Nice. Which was Kevin's number 8. Deborah Granick, who of course directed really Jennifer Lawrence's breakout hit with Winter's Bone. I've been waiting forever to see her do another film, and I don't know what took so long, but I'm glad she did. But yeah, as you mentioned, Kevin, the finale of the film is truly heart-wrenching and just brutal to watch. You know, Ben Foster, who I think is a rather underrated actor, sometimes he can overcommit to a role, but I think here he adds a little level of subtleties that sometimes is not in some of his performances, where he kind of overacts. With this, I think he's able to really ride that line really well, and the relationship with him and you know, Thomas McKenzie, who is phenomenal as well. Like, I don't know if she'll have another career like Jennifer Lawrence has, but you have to give a credit to Deborah Granick for being able to find actresses that have a talent that no one else has been able to utilize, at least to my knowledge. And it just seeing this man struggle and just the conflict that ensues, like, he clearly has, you know, love for his daughter. And I kind of thought maybe you would see more of an abusive relationship, but it's a different type of abuse in the sense of, you know, it's not intentional. It's kind of, you know, he's doing what he thinks is best or what he has to do, and even how it deals with things like PTSD, but never really, you know, it doesn't hammer that home a huge amount. But I think it's important in that regard as well. This is just his need to get away, and in a way, like this man's search for meaning that I don't think he'll ever be able to find. Right. So yeah, it was just phenomenally directed, and I was really happy, and hopefully Deborah Granick has another follow-up that doesn't take another 7 years, because I'm really impressed with her ability to just tell really small, intimate, and powerful stories.
Obviously, I agree. Amanda, what do you have at number 7?
This might be an obvious one, but it's A Quiet Place. Because super awesome, cool concept. The tone was great. There's definitely some moments where you find yourself holding your breath, and some super oh shit moments happening in here. And the strength that this family had is just insane, and the self-sacrifice, and just a ton of emotions going on in this film, and some cool creatures. I wish we would have been able to see the creatures a little bit more, but overall, super solid film.
Definitely impressive from I believe this is John Krasinski's first directorial film.
Debut?
Yeah, he's directed TV before, but this is the first time he's ever done a movie.
Yeah, so that was definitely an impressive debut by him, and another one of those films that comes out very early in the year, and I think unfortunately not enough people talk about it later on. And there's a couple films like that we might talk about during the course of this list. For my number 7, I was not expecting to enjoy this one either. This is like this year's Brigsby Bear for me, and I guess it has some connective tissue between that one in a way. I'm going with Please Stand By for my number 7. This is, let me get the right name here, Elle Fanning? Mm-hmm. Elle Fanning, the Star Trek super fan who also is autistic, and maybe I'm just ignorant with the subject matter, but I don't remember a whole lot of films that feature adolescents or teenagers that are dealing with autism and kind of highlighting some of their struggles and some of the things that they're going through, and I think it's got some dramatic moments. It's got some comedic moments, and I just thought it was an entertaining ride throughout the whole thing, and the kind of this bizarre journey that she's going on to try to, deliver this idea for an episode so that she can fulfill her Star Trek fandom dreams, etc. But I don't know. I thought it was a really good film that kind of came out of left field and really impressed me. Amanda, you were rolling your eyes.
I should have known that this was going to be on your list.
Why do you say that?
It's just you.
All right.
I actually never even heard of that film until you brought it up. So there you go.
It's funny because I was checking stuff that was in my top 20. I was clicking on it on Letterboxd, and one thing I like to do is to see, because I don't follow a lot of people. I follow people that I value their opinions and and sometimes interested to see what their movie takes are. So it's very few people, but I was clicking on each one of the films and kind of clicking on the option that gives the breakdown of what all of my friends, or whatever you call it on Letterboxd, what they thought of it. And every film, there was anywhere from, 8 to 20 people that had seen it and either had written reviews or rated it or stuff like that. And I clicked on this one, and nobody I follow has seen this, apparently. So I don't know what anybody thinks about this film. I've obviously not heard anybody talking about it. So
you know what I think about it?
I'm an oddball. You don't like it?
Huh?
What? You said I know what you think about it?
Yeah, we've talked about this movie. We've seen this movie together.
Oh, I don't remember what you said about it.
Okay, well.
Okay. We'll move on, apparently. So, Matt, what do you got next?
All right. I kind of teased this with the last one. My number 6 is the best rom-com of 2018. It's a little movie called Little Italy. It stars Hayden Christensen. It's got Alyssa Milano. It's got Adam Ferrara.
Best poster of the year. So.
Amazing poster. I don't know if you know this, but apparently Hayden Christensen's supposed to be Italian in that movie. He's got a real bad black hair dye job that slowly fades to brown over the course of the movie because like the kid that got to play little him, because they have an 8-year-old, they do it starts off with the protagonists as 8-year-olds, and then it zooms forward 10 years or 15 or whatever. The kid they got is way more Italian looking than he is. And it's real awkward because it's okay, that kid's clearly got naturally black hair and Hayden Christensen does it. But I mean, other than that, it's real, it's charming, it's cute, it's fun, it's adorable. I loved it. I watched it last night at 3 a.m, and so I've got some recency bias.
Dan, is this one of the ones that you had on your list of films that would be mentioned today?
No, it was not. I've not seen it, or I saw the poster, which is amazing, and I think it's streaming on Amazon Prime. So
Amazon Prime for free.
Yeah, I just saw that it finally was there. I'm like, there's no way Matt hasn't caught up with this, but he hadn't listed it as one of the films that he'd seen this year. So Hayden Christensen, a comeback?
Dude, here's the thing. Between this and Outcast, I have zero doubt that Hayden Christensen can act. He's you know what he's bad at? Getting real strong emotions. Like when he gets angry in this movie, it's so episode 3 Anakin. It's dial it back just a little, Hayden. But other than that, he's got great comic timing. He does good physical work. He could do it. Honestly, Outcast, where he's kind of a middle of the road sword for hire situation, where he doesn't have a he doesn't have a horse in this race for most of the movie. That one's way better. Or he does a way better job in that. But I mean, this is a better movie. It's better written, better directed, less ambitious.
All right, Dan, number 6. What do you got?
Number 6 is I usually separate documentaries, or used to documentaries and regular films, just because it allowed me to cheat and put more movies on. But since I haven't seen as many, and I figured it's probably better just to combine them. And there was actually a lot of great documentaries that I saw this year, Minding the Gap, which is getting a lot of praise and deservingly so. But one I really loved, Recovery Boys, which was, I debated having that on my top 10, but I think it's better message than it is a film. It's about people suffering from opioid addiction and them trying to recover from it. But I think my favorite of the year was, again, it's another one that's getting a lot of hype by the time I watched it, which is Won't You Be My Neighbor? And I wasn't huge into Mr. Rogers growing up as a kid. I watched it a little bit, so I wasn't sure how much of an emotional impact this would have. Really, my biggest connection to Mr. Rogers right now is the fact that my son watches Daniel Tiger, and so you can kind of see his legacy going. But I just thought that maybe having that lack of connection that maybe even made it more impactful, because you got to see kind of who Mr. Rogers was. And I know some people have complained that on a filmmaking standpoint, it's pretty straightforward. Your talking heads and some little bits here and there, archival footage, and kind of just your classic documentary style. And I can understand that complaint, but I don't think it's fair enough. For one, I think it fits the subject matter really well, because Mr. Rogers was about finding the beauty in the simple things and just having that straightforward, honest conversation. And I think if it went too flashy or tried to do too much, it would really be kind of counterintuitive to what it was trying to say. And I think it does, though, look into Mr. Rogers and I think show kind of where his pain in a way was coming from, or the way he was able to connect, and it's just his authenticity and how important it was, especially in some of the key moments when you see him talking about some major issues, from assassinations in the 60s to some September 11th, and just the huge impact he would have on people and why he was important, and maybe some of the cracks as well. And there's not a lot of like skeletons in his closet or anything like that. You can't really create something that's not there. But even seeing some of the relationships he grew with the people on the show and some of the secrets they had to hide. But I just thought it was ultimately really emotional, and its ability just to show the power of being genuine and honest with one another. So that's why it's my number 6.
I unfairly, I think, wanted a little more from this, and that sounds like a negative statement, I guess, but it's not, because like I said, I think it's unfair. I was a huge Mr. Rogers fan. Like, I watched this show religiously when I was a child. Like, it was this and maybe to a lesser extent Sesame Street, and then even a lesser extent maybe Reading Rainbow. But this was like my go-to show as a very young child. And I've also seen some other programs that kind of highlighted his life and biography type stuff. It wasn't necessarily like a full-on documentary, but some kind of behind-the-scenes type stuff. So unfortunately for me, this one didn't land as much as I was hoping it for, because most of the content that I saw I already knew, and a lot of the stuff that they were using I'd already seen. So I don't know. I wanted to, I guess I was hoping for something more, something that I didn't know about him, but that's not to say that this is not a really good documentary and a really good film to watch, especially for people that maybe have more of a passing knowledge of Mr. Rogers or of the man, the show, or anything like that. I think that would be great. And it's going to be interesting now that we have this to then see what they do with the film coming out next year. I don't know. It does have Tom Hanks in it, so maybe there's some hope there, but I could see where, I don't know, it could be disappointing as well, but I'm hoping it's not. But yeah, I think this is a good documentary. I just, for some reason, maybe I had too high of expectations for it, which is why it didn't quite get up this high for me. Amanda, what did you think of that documentary?
It was boring.
Oh, wow.
I like Mr. Rogers, but I was just kind of like waiting for it to be over. But it just, some of the stuff I didn't know. So it was cool seeing, little peeks behind the curtain here and there. But I did watch a lot of Mr. Rogers when I was little also, so.
Okay. What do you got then at your number 6 that wasn't boring for you?
Wakanda Forever. I got Black Panther.
Black Panther. So a lot of comic book films this year. Why Black Panther? One of the ones that rose to your top 10.
Super awesome soundtrack. And I feel like the villain here had a reason to be a fucking villain. And it made sense. And I felt for his story, and I felt for T'Challa's struggle here, and I thought the visuals were super cool. Love the live action Lion King Spirit World scene. Dug it. And I think like the technology still worked. I think seeing Wakanda was pretty cool. I think that definitely did it justice with, the traditional wear and bringing some of the culture in. I think some of it did look a little cartoony at times when they are in Wakanda. But other than that, I think it was a super fun ride and something that everybody had been anticipating and super hyped up. And I'm glad it's kind of died down now, but I was still able to enjoy it.
All right. Black Panther at your number 6. For my number 6, a film that I think hopefully with time will become even more loved and maybe have more of a cult following because I had a lot of fun with it. I think some people might unfairly knock it down because they think it's a Tarantino ripoff or something of that nature, but I really enjoyed Bad Times at the El Royale. I thought it was a whole lot of fun. I thought Chris Hemsworth, right? I have the right Chris. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Chris Hemsworth was really interesting in this role because I think it's a side of him that I hadn't really seen much. I mean, it might exist out there, but I haven't seen much of it. So I thought that was a lot of fun. I liked the different. I like movies like this where you kind of get introduced into a very small group of characters, whether it's 4, 5, 6 characters or something like that, and you kind of get to see a little bit of each one. I would have liked to see more of one of the characters. Unfortunately, we didn't get that chance. But I just thought this was very entertaining. I was definitely not bored at any point during this film, and I was very much anticipating what else was going to happen and eager to see how it was all going to play out. And again, another one that I really want to watch again because I think there's a lot of stuff that you might pick up on a second watching. So Bad Times at the El Royale is my number 6. Back to Matt. Top 5 time. Matt, what do you got?
All right, so my top 5 are all movies everyone knows I'm gonna see, and it's all pretty top heavy. And I don't know that I'm 100% on the order they go in, but this is the order that I have them in this list right now, so that's the order you're gonna hear them in. So at 5, I have Solo: A Star Wars Story. It does a lot of the things I want. Like, Star Wars is my favorite thing, and like I said earlier, I like heisty stuff. And it has heist elements, but I would have much rather had it been just one long heist movie. But didn't get that with Rogue One either. And I also would have liked it to not have a lightsaber because we've yet to really have that in a Star Wars movie ever. So like, I don't know why old Robo Legs needed to be like, hey, you should come over and hang out with me. And also, I have a lightsaber. Don't quite get why they made that choice. Just to check a box. But Solo, like, it's a good movie.
Is this the first time we've done this and the Star Wars movie has not been number 1 for you?
Oh, I can't. I don't know. I'll go look through my list and I'll let you know when it comes back around. But I mean, Rogue One, like, what else came in that year? Because that one's a weaker one too.
Dan, what do you think about Solo?
I like Solo, and I saw it. I didn't see it in theaters. I own it because I am part of Disney Movie Club, and I didn't say no, so I bought it without realizing it. But I did end up really liking. I liked it. It was. I guess I went into it because I heard a lot of mixed things to it, and I don't love everything about it, but I thought it functioned well as a Star Wars movie. I don't necessarily. I know people wanted to see Phil Lord, Lord and Miller's take on it, and I thought there were. The guy who played Han Solo, I can't think of his name right now. I thought he did a good enough job. Like, he wasn't trying to be Harrison Ford, and I did really like Woody Harrelson in that as well. Like, that's a character I think that I'm actually more interested in seeing if they ever explore it. I know he had a comic book earlier this year, but I think of all the Star Wars movies that have come out since we've got the new episodes, it's probably on last on my list. I don't know if I think I would put Rogue One above it. But I still would give it a positive review. It's like in my right now, out of like the 60 movies I've seen this year, it is currently, I don't know where, 40. So,
Wow. Yeah, I currently have this in my top 30. But I don't know. It's so hard for me to rank Star Wars films because I feel like I would let too much bias in, and they should just automatically be in the top. But so I handicap it big time, I guess. But I enjoyed this film. I didn't quite get some of the hate that it got. Again, though, I haven't watched this. I need to like sit down and watch all of them again. I've watched it like bits and pieces of it, but I haven't watched it all the way through again since I saw it in the theater. So I need to do that if I was trying to like really break down between this and Rogue One, which one I liked more, because I like a lot of elements of both of them. Amanda, what did you think of Solo?
I think it was a good time. It doesn't feel all the way like a Star Wars movie, but I think it had a lot of cool stuff that I needed to see that I didn't know that I wanted to see from Star Wars.
Nice. All right, Dan, that brings us to your first in your top 5.
Yeah, and this is my first in the top 5. It's my third comic book movie in my top 10, and I think this is where people say, is it when it comes to top 10, is it your favorite or the best? And this would probably be more on my favorite because they're probably better made movies this year. But being a huge comic book fan, and this was probably the best year ever for comic book movies, just incredible with the amount of great stuff that came out. And I have yet to see Aquaman. But my number 5 is Avengers: Infinity War, and there's this, and of course Black Panther, both of which I enjoyed a great deal. I think though what really worked for me with Avengers over Black Panther, which, spoiler alert, is not my top 10, but is in my top 20, and was the fact that this was actually able to be made and be as good as it was, being able to combine all these different worlds, from Black Panther to the Guardians of the Galaxy, to Thor, and putting them all together. But ultimately, why it works is because of Thanos. And I was so scared that Thanos was not going to work as a villain, because every time we saw him, even in the first Guardians movies, he was, he's lifeless. There really wasn't much to him. And I was like, okay, how are you going to make him into this threat that he can be? He's one of the biggest threats in the Marvel, comic universe. How are they going to do that? And they were able to do it in a way that I wasn't expecting, by making him kind of more of a sympathetic character, and honestly making him a lot more layered of a character compared to what he is in the comics, and giving him this purpose. Usually, in the comics, this is a need and love of death, but here it wasn't necessarily that. And I think it ended up making for a stronger movie. It had some great action in it, as well as you would expect. And the ending, the ending of this probably was the moment of the year, or close to it, regarding the shock that it kind of laid. And I know people are going to talk about how these people are coming back and all that stuff, but still, having the audacity to end this billion-dollar movie with just all of these characters just turning to ash, which was kind of cool. I was kind of not sure how they were going to handle it, and I thought they did everything they could. And now it's my most anticipated movie of the year, and it hit everything I could have asked for, and then some. So that's why it's my number 5.
Yeah, I think definitely one of the most talked about films of the year as well. Some very emotional moments towards that end as well, that everybody cites. Especially the Spider-Man and Iron Man moment there, and definitely left everybody anticipating more with what we're going to get from this year. I have 5 comic book films in my top 30 to speak to. You saying it was a great year for comic book films. I definitely think that is a true statement. I kind of go back and forth for me as far as which one's the best comic book of the year, comic book movie, whether it's Black Panther or Avengers Infinity War, but those are the 2 that are kind of duking it out for me. And then I have 3 other ones that are real close to it. So, Amanda, first of your top 5, what do you got?
It is also Avengers Infinity War.
Boom. Goes the dynamite. Comments?
No need to say anything. Dan said everything else about it. No, it's all right. I'll just let him go. I'm like, well, I'm not going to say anything about this.
All right. So for my number 5, another film I didn't know much about going into, but was thoroughly impressed. Kind of like my number 9 spot, highlighting some injustices when it comes to race, but also for me, I think what I like about this one, especially, and for those that don't know, this is following the main character has 3 days left in his parole or probation before he's kind of free from that. It's kind of following his last 3 days. I guess I didn't say the title yet, but I'm talking about Blind Spotting. And I think one thing that we don't know enough about in our society is how hard it is for people who have a record, or who have slipped up, or who are on probation or parole or different things, to actually succeed in anything. And it's just kind of following the fact that it's only following a 3-day span, and how many times he comes very close to having that jeopardy, attached to violating and going back to jail or something of that nature. I 2 standout performances when it comes to acting performances. I really enjoyed the rapping, I guess, segments of this. I thought that was really entertaining and creative as well. A lot of drama, a little bit of comedy in there, but a story that needs to be told. And I think more people kind of need to be aware of how sometimes sometimes the decks can be stacked against these individuals. And I thought Blind Spotting was amazing. My 1 through 5 are interchangeable, so depending on what month you ask me, this could be 4, 3, 2, 1 even. But right now it sits at my number 5. Matt, back to you, number 4.
All right, number 4. I haven't heard it yet. That's Ant Boy and his wasp girlfriend. I really enjoyed this. It was fun. It was great. I enjoy that we could still get a smaller story in this massive universe where in the same year a dude can kill half of the universe, and in that same year another guy could be all like, hey, I just want to get a building back real quick. Like it's very I mean, you know, you can make all the jokes you want about small story, Ant-Man, haha. But like, I enjoy that we could still have a friendly neighborhood Ant Boy story when Thanos is existent.
Dan, thoughts on Ant-Man?
Yeah, I agree. I think I know a lot of people are like, how can you do Ant-Man and the Wasp after doing Avengers Infinity War? But I thought it was exactly what you need. It's a nice little palate cleanser. Paul Rudd is just, an American treasure. And I thought, I don't know if I like it more or less than the first Ant-Man, but I do think it's, it's a fun, it feels very different compared to the other Marvel movies in its ability to kind of just, it's not in New York, it's on the West Coast, the father-daughter relationship and just the mechanics of the shrinking and stuff like that. And I was actually a little bit, I love the story of Ghost in that, again, it was one of a better year when it comes to Marvel's always had that villain problem, but I think they actually had 3 movies with at least 3 other better villains this year. So,
yeah, I agree as well. Amanda. Go for it.
I found my 2016 list, and Rogue One was number 1 on it, but that list is bunk because Ghostbusters is above Civil War, and that's wrong. So 2016 me is wrong, and I think Civil War is probably better than Rogue One if we're being honest.
That's always a fun exercise to go back and look at our list later on and be like, what was I thinking type thing. So Amanda, your number 4.
This is a movie I was definitely anticipating, and excuse me, the opening scenes right out the gate, I was like, okay, this is how it's gonna be. And it kind of toned down a little bit after that, but I still enjoyed what I got from it, and that's Fantastic Beasts, Crimes of Grindelwald. I think there was some cool moments here. I love the all the magic in this world that we're continuing to get, and I love this new era that we're getting a glimpse into, and these relationships and how complicated things got in this one. So I really enjoyed it.
I don't know which one you're going to get more heat for, Predator or Crimes of Grindelwald. There's a lot of hate out there for both of those films.
Motherfucker, this is my list. Mine.
Dan?
I was gonna say you skipped my number 4. I get it.
Oh, I switched the order. Dan, sorry.
Yeah.
What's your number 4?
I understand. I don't want to stand in the way, but I have not seen Crime of Grindelwald, so I can't comment. I have not seen the other one either. The first one, whatever Fantastic Beasts it was called. So
that's what it was called.
So my number 4 is First Man, which I know is a movie that I'm really kind of surprised it's not getting any love when it comes to awards, but surprised and not very surprised. And I liked La La Land. I wasn't really in love. It seems like that was a movie that was very polarizing, and I felt myself in the middle. I love Whiplash. I don't know if I like Whiplash or First Man more, but it's weird when you think about it, considering that going to the moon is probably the greatest achievement in mankind, the history of mankind, and yet it's almost thought about as an afterthought. I know even when this movie was coming out, people were like, how can you make a story like that compelling when you already know the answer? And I thought what was phenomenal about this is that it showcased just the amount of danger and what was really going on at that time and place. It really put you into the headspace of those astronauts and legitimately into the cockpit as you kind of looked around and saw that this thing that's sending you to the moon looks like a glorified children's fort, just using nuts and bolts that you would find at your Home Depot, and knowing that's the difference between you and the vacuum of space is kind of incredible. And the opening sequence is a good example of that. It's one of the it's heart pounding. It's well executed. And Chazelle's direction is phenomenal. But of course, like really that in a way, oddly enough, it is an afterthought, because this is really just about a man and his attempt to grieve the loss of his daughter. And I ignorant going into this, but I did not realize that Neil Gaiman lost a child, and that was something that he felt. But I just thought it was so moving in that element, and I was not expecting it to be that emotional. And I know it's really laid back. It doesn't have a lot of maybe those big moments people would expect, and even Ryan Gosling's performance, it's measured, but when he needs to be, I think it's really affecting, especially the ending sequence. I think is one of the best of the year as well. So I just thought it was phenomenal. What it was able to accomplish, and its ability to kind of humanize kind of this figure that is kind of larger than humanity within itself, and just showing just the pain he was going through. And I thought it was phenomenal in that realm. So it was actually my number one for quite a while until I got caught up with some more movies. But I really kind of disappointed that we're not seeing this as nominated for Best Picture, because I think it checks all those boxes, but it checks all the boxes, and it's also a really good film as well. So.
Yeah, I'm surprised too, especially with the 10 options and them only putting the 8 films in, how this one didn't get a 9th spot or something of that nature. This one has an asterisk for me in my ranking. It's right now sitting at number 12 on my list, but that is only because I've only seen 85% of it. I haven't caught the end yet, so I don't have a complete viewing to kind of rank this accurately, but yes, definitely some moments about Neil Armstrong that I didn't know about, and a lot of emotional pull here. I'm looking forward to finishing it, but until then I can't kind of rank this one accurately. But I am also very surprised, given Chazelle's pedigree and the content and stuff like that not more people are talking about First Man here towards the award season swing. For sure. Amanda, you've also only seen part of it as well, but what did you think of First Man?
I think that it was something that we should see. It was a side of things that we definitely should have been able to view, so we can appreciate the event more. And I think that Ryan Gosling's performance, as Dan said, was measured, but sometimes he frustrated me as a person. It was like just not emoting enough. And I don't know how true that is to
married to me,
Neil Armstrong. And yeah, and my dad's the same way, so I don't know. It's fucking irritating. But yeah, I just needed a little bit more from him, and it was frustrating how much of a brick wall he was even to his own family at times. So, and then when he dropped the little girl's, what was it? Bracelet, yeah. Like that. No, why would you do that? I get it, but I don't. It was frustrating.
All right. But yeah, we definitely need to catch the ending so we can get that complete viewing in. Matt, top 3, what do you got?
I mean,
Oh,
obviously...
wait, I haven't gone yet. God, I am screwing up this order so bad. I want Dan to go before Amanda. No. Okay, my number 4 real quick. It's already been talked about. Maybe that's why I was bypassing it. It was already on Amanda's list. Again, I think one of the ones that came out early in the year and then just kind of got forgotten, and that is A Quiet Place. I loved A Quiet Place. It was number 2 on my list for probably 6 to 8 months of the year. Dropped a little bit towards the end, down to number 4, but I really enjoyed A Quiet Place. I think this is one that's going to stand the test of time and people are going to enjoy. A lot of cool parts about it, and the alien section, or monster section, I guess, was also cool. I know some people had a problem with how it ended. I did not. I enjoyed A Quiet Place quite a bit. Now, Matt, you can go with number 3.
Man, that movie looks so scary.
It's pretty frightful.
My number 3 has been talked about. This is gonna be it's on the most lists so far because it's Infinity War. Like, that's 3 lists, right? Mm-hmm. We're doing pretty good. I liked that one. It was good. Like, it's not perfect. Like, I think Thanos is a better villain than we usually get, but there's still some weird qualities to it. Like, wiping out half the population of the universe like is not a solution. Like, because you're not creating more resources, you're just taking longer to depreciate through them. I don't know, but like that. I mean, he can make a dumb. He can make a dumb, and then he punches. That's Thanos.
Thanos in a nutshell. I like it. All right, Dan, right back to you for, I'm going to get the order right this time around. Number 3 for you.
Number 3 is actually another Netflix movie, and I think in many years this would be a number 1 for me. And I think on a sheer filmmaking standpoint, it probably deserves to be, and that's Alfonso Cuarón's Roma, which it was a movie, honestly, I started a few times and stopped just because I just wasn't in the mood for it, because it is a very, talked about measured, a very measured, quiet, and really deliberately paced movie. But I think if you can settle in, and I was actually hoping to see this on the big screen because I knew it would be nominated for Best Picture, and I go to this Best Picture showcase, but then AMC decided to not show it, which is that's a whole nother story. But so unfortunately, like, I knew I wasn't going to see it on the big screen, so I might as well see it at home, and I'm glad I did, because I was just really honestly surprised by the end. And obviously I knew it would be, masterfully crafted. The cinematography is phenomenal. It's just some of the shots he's able to do is just like, we lose that, how did he do that type of thing when it comes to film today? Because obviously we have computer animation and we can kind of use that the answer to that question. But with this film, that wasn't the case. The beach scene at the end is in particular. But I was actually just kind of surprised by how the slow-moving emotional drama really builds up to this kind of crescendo in the sequence that is kind of highlighted on the poster. And I was just really surprised by how moved I was in that moment. And it is just a touching film. I do wonder, though, like, if it is, it's this story about his, personal, the caregiver they had when he was growing up. And I wonder if, is it kind of congratulatory type of thing where they're kind of looking back at her life and also thinking about how they bettered it and she bettered them. But I don't necessarily think that's the case. And I did wrestle with that a little bit. If is this kind of giving that family more credit than it deserves? But I think it really also shows kind of their cracks in how they didn't treat her like they should have. And, coming from a family that, was probably more on Roma than it is on Cuarón's. I did feel like it was able to kind of show how sometimes even people that that are taking care of you can be kind of just negated and not thought about, especially in the sequence where she has to go to the hospital and you see just how little they actually know about her. But I end up by the end kind of celebrating her in the life, and just seeing how she's able to connect with that family due to the failings that's occurring there. So yeah, it's probably not for everyone. Talking about boring, it's probably gonna be boring for a lot of people because it's not in a hurry to get anywhere anytime fast. It's a foreign language film. But Cuarón to me is one of our best filmmakers in his ability to be versatile, but always he could do something that's a huge spectacle like Gravity, but something like this that is a little bit much more low key and much more just straightforward human drama. So that's why it's my number 3.
I know exactly what you're saying as far as having to be in the right headspace, because I've tried to start this twice and I haven't got past like the 15-minute mark. So I eventually would like to give it a shot. It's something I had zero interest in as far as like the story and the subject matter. But he does do some impressive filmmaking, and I'll give him that, and I need to give it a shot. But you got to be in the right headspace, I guess, or I have to be in the right headspace to view it, because I haven't got past 15 minutes so far. But definitely getting a lot of praise, as it seemingly should. And now I got it in the right order. You are up for your number 3.
This is a recent watch, and it was a hard one. Definitely difficult to get through. A lot of emotions that you are drugged through in here, not a lot of them good, and definitely a very real problem for a lot of families, and affects way too many people, and that's Life Itself. Steve Carell, or not Life Itself. What is the Steve Carell one we just watched? I just wrote down the wrong one.
Beautiful Boy.
Beautiful Boy. Yes, that's correct. I read this wrong on the list. Beautiful Boy.
Beautiful boy.
About the opioid addiction.
Yeah.
Or just drugs in general. Yeah, it was just so difficult to see this family struggling, seeing this dad struggle, see this situation tear this family apart, and go through that whole struggle with them. It's a hard process.
Yeah, I thought I was very impressed by Steve Carell. I thought he was amazing in this role. I thought just kind of seeing the struggle without him even needing to say anything, just through his actions, through the looks on his face, the body language. I thought he did a very good job with that. Obviously, was it Timothy Chalamet is the other individual. He's doing a great job as well. And this is, it's a heartbreaking film to watch, because you know when you're watching something like this that the chances of it turning out well or getting solved is so minuscule when someone's dealing with that type of demon and that type of disease. And I'm glad you had this on your list. I haven't had a lot of chance to think about it a lot since we just watched it. It's sitting right now at number 14 for me, but I thought it was a very very important movie, a lot of important subject matter, and just like you said, a very hard watch.
The like text at the end definitely picks you back up after this whole movie is like beating the shit out of you.
It's definitely interesting too, because it's dealing with two different I don't know if you want to call them memoirs, or two different novel or autobiographical type of writings from two different angles. So it's kind of interesting how they deal with that and put it together into this one movie. So
yeah, I actually just recently saw this too, and I love the performances. Like you're right, Steve Carell and Timothée Chalamet are great. I do feel like though the direction kept getting in the way at times, and like I understand the structure is supposed to represent like kind of the endless cycle of trying to kick addiction, but at times it felt so offsetting, and to the point of like confusion that it hindered that for me, because it was just I don't know if maybe I'm just wasn't strong enough to follow it, but at times it was just I kept getting lost in where we were and kind of where he was going. But the message is obviously strong. I talked about that documentary Recovery Boys. It's something similar, and like I mentioned, the performances are great. Like Chalamet is just he's having quite the last few years. He's with this and. Call Me by Your Name. He's really kind of showing he's probably one of the best actors out there right now, in only a few films.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. I'm not going to skip myself this time. So my number 3, this is like the biggest movie of the year for me. Like checking all the boxes of like, I guess I don't know if you want to call it a blockbuster, but just like that movie that kind of captures the nation's attention, so to speak. And the reason why it's ranked so high on my list, all the way up at number 3, is because I have not stopped thinking about this film. I don't think since I saw it, and I'm talking about A Star Is Born, with Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga. Obviously, it's getting a lot of attention, a lot of buzz, but this is not just. I don't feel like it's one of those movies that's just getting the buzz and the attention and whatnot just because of a song. It's much more than that. There are some heart-wrenching moments in this film. Sam Elliott is incredible in this film. Glad he got some attention in the award season circuit. And I didn't know that it would have that lasting impact, but like I don't think there's been a week since I've seen this film that at least at one point I haven't thought about different scenes from the film or different things like that. So interesting that they were able to do that, given the fact that it's like the 4th or 5th time they've tried to do this story over the decades or something of that nature. So A Star Is Born is my number 3. Matt, your number 2.
My number 2 is Black Panther. Like, it's been talked about. It's great. They did some things with Claw that I wasn't expecting, but otherwise that was fine. I liked Black Panther. It was good. I don't know, man. I can't really top you guys. You guys are all talking about movies and stuff. All I've got is jokes. It was weird the way, what was it, Forrest Whitaker's character died. That was weird.
I love it. I like your jokes, Matt, so keep them coming, please.
That's all I got. That's all I got.
Dan, what do you got at your number 2?
My number 2. So I mentioned that Won't You Be My Neighbor was my highest rated documentary, although number 2 is very docudrama-esque, and it's The Rider, which is the story about a real life cowboy who has an accident and is unable to ride, be in the rodeo any further. He's dealing with that, disconnection. Basically, the thing that's defined him as an individual is taken away. His value is no longer there, and he's struggling with that. It's there's this is a movie that's filled with non-actors. I think one of my favorite movie last year was The Florida Project, which had Willem Dafoe, but that too was just mostly non-actors. This has no actors whatsoever, but you never realize that, and it's a key to the director, because it seems like all these people just being themselves, but getting people to be themselves is quite the challenge, and it lends to the authenticity of the movie. And just even though this is obviously a movie about, I've ridden a horse a few times, but I'm clearly not a cowboy. But I thought its ability to kind of to tell the story, and it's kind of, especially you see this world, a world that's not very talked about, a world that's very rarely focused on when it comes to film, and seeing kind of how this is entirely different type of lifestyle, and just realizing just how you're in a situation where there's no escape, and how basically everyone around you is telling you what you should do or should be. The idea of what masculinity truly means, but never really hammering that home, or never really feeling like it's being a message film. But ultimately, too, I know a movie's working for me when small moments can have a huge emotional impact. It's one thing for a scene that goes on forever, or that's this over the top scene to have an emotional impact. But when it's a small moment, again, it can do that. It's working. Last year, one of my favorite films was late 1974, and it was just people eating cereal, but it meant something to that character and to that story. In this, it was just a head nod. It was just a nice head nod that just had an emotional connection that wasn't there for much of the film before. There's a lot of touching moments in this. When you see, again, some other people that have had, there's a scene with a former rodeo rider who's dealing with an even more severe injury, and you see his friend just trying to letting him relive that magic. And it's where that docudrama aspect comes in, because that's a real life emotional moment. That's not something that you could legitimately script, or want to come off as authentic as it does. So I really struggled hard with thinking about putting this as my number one, really my top three, I think, or even arguably my top four. Could be different in a week, but for right now, it's my number two. It's The Rider.
All right, a lot of good things I've heard about that one, but it is a blind spot for me. We have not caught up with that one yet. Amanda, only 2 picks left. What's your number 2?
This is one that I wasn't expecting to like as much as I did, but it definitely had a lot of staying power with me, and something I want to catch back up on, but was able to really pull those emotions through the year. This is what I think we saw fairly early on as well. That's The Woman Walks Ahead. I think that is a great story. Another story that had a lot of truth to it, based on some true events and real people. And I think that this is Jessica Chastain, right? I think she did a great job here, and movie akin to Hostels, but had slightly more upbeat feel, but held true to telling the story and to telling the struggle.
Yeah, I think this is one too that I enjoyed a lot. It happened so early in the year that it didn't quite stay with me as much, but I definitely enjoyed it. Remember enjoying it when we watched it, much in the same vein, like you said, as Hostels. My number 2, hey, this was a film that was number 1 on my list for 11 months, but doesn't end up the year, I guess, at number 1, but maybe ask me next week and it'll jump back over. But it was number 1 since we saw it early on in the year, and that would be Annihilation. Amanda, you already talked about it. I love me some sci-fi, especially some I don't know, complicated thinking man sci-fi film, and not just like a blockbuster sci-fi film, much like I liked with Her and Ex Machina. Annihilation was amazing. If you want to see a film that you're going to be thinking about for quite some time afterwards and trying to dissect and figure out and analyze and stuff like that, then this is the film for you. I think it was freaking amazing. I think it's going to have some staying power and be talked about for decades to come. and Jodie Foster was Jodie Foster. All the people involved in it were
Natalie Portman?
Natalie Portman, and the cast, which was
Oscar Isaac.
Yep. You're just going to name all the cast for me?
You're not naming anybody. I'm trying to help you out.
Struggling, but I like the entire cast, really. And it had some interesting choices, some people that you wouldn't think, put all these random people together and it's going to work, but I thought it worked very well. I think the ending is very complicated and very interesting, and that's what I want in a sci-fi film. So Annihilation, I want to watch it again. It was my favorite film for almost the entire year. That's my number 2. Matt, what takes the number 1 spot for you for 2018?
Annihilation was so spooky looking. I thought you didn't like the spooky.
It's like spooky in a way that I can handle. And I had 2 spooky films, I guess, with A Quiet Place and Annihilation on my list.
Yeah, man. It's too bad you didn't see Bird Box. You could have
converting him.
Oh, no, I saw that. I didn't like that much.
Oh, okay, good. My number 1, Spider-Man. This one has all of them in it. It's got the one that's a pig. It's got the one that's a Nick Cage. That's real weird because if you read the old comics that the Nick Cage is from, he's only like 16 and he's like, it's not good. Like, it's bad. There's no Nazis in it. Like, it's real weird that they were like, we're gonna take this story and then like assume it, like, I don't know, jump it 15 years forward and then we're gonna take that character and he's just gonna be in this one with the anime girl. It's great. Like, I don't know, it's so much fun. Like, they did so many things. They even did they added it with some Spider 2099 and Spider-Man 1960s cartoon like jokes. Like, what are they doing with the Spider-Man on this one? It's great. You should see it if you haven't.
I agree with everything Matt just said. What else can you say besides what you just said? Dan, time for your number 1 pick.
All right. Well, I talked about how, it's trying to count the movies. As of right now, we've had a few crossovers, but we've talked about 30 films, which is pretty incredible as we're getting to our number 1. So we have not had that many. We not have one yet show up in all 3, or all 4. Last 1 and 3 and a couple in 2. But my number 1 film is one that actually has been talked about already. Kevin, you mentioned it, and it's Blindspotting. It's my number 1 movie of the year. It was a challenge naming my number 1 movie. As I mentioned, like my top 3, my top 4 are really, really close to one another. And I ultimately went with Blindspotting because for a few reasons. I always appreciate it when a movie can make you like feel just a cavalcade of different emotions, and that is Blindspotting. It is funny one moment, it is humorous, it's tense the next, it is just devastating near the end. You mentioned the rap sequence, which is kind of a combination of all those different things. It's a movie with, I think, something to say, and it's very much represents kind of this time and place in an effective way, but also not in a way that feels like it will age poorly, because I think it's hitting on a lot of topics that are vital. Obviously talking about the Black experience, talking about police brutality, gentrification, but never. It clearly has a point of view, and it is expressing that point of view with a vigor and with an emotional edge that makes it work. And there's just really nothing else quite like it. And like I said, the performances are all phenomenal as well, and it's also entertaining. And it can do all that and not feel disjointed. It can do all that and not feel like you're watching different movies, and it feels like everyone's in the same movie. And some of the sequences, there's this fight that breaks out in this bar, a handgun sequence, which was just, it kind of comes out of nowhere, and you could say it's a little bit forceful, but in the moment, man, you just jaw dropped, and your stomach just is in knots as you're just watching this thing come out. And as you mentioned, Kevin, it's also just talking about really just the justice system in general, and how you can kind of get stuck in a situation and not have an ability to find your way out. So yeah, that's why it was my number 1.
I think that's one thing it does very well with the main character that it's following, is show like clearly this guy is not trying to do anything wrong. Like he's trying to be a good individual, a good citizen. He's trying to not screw up and stuff like that. And just to see the number of times that he still, even with all those good intentions, almost does end up messing up. It's just like crazy, but so real. And that's, again, another reason why it works so well for me. Amanda, it's time for the unveiling. What do you have as your number one film of 2018?
You don't even know.
I don't.
Game night.
Game night.
Nice.
I had so much fucking fun with this movie. It had me dying laughing. I loved all of these characters. It was so ridiculous. Had me on the edge of my seat tense.
The best forehead in all of 2018.
What?
The best forehead of 2018.
What do you mean?
Jesse Plemons. It's just like his forehead and his facial expressions, the blankness.
Oh, that dude. Yeah, and I had just seen the episode of Black Mirror with that guy in it, so it was totally funny to see him in a different kind of role. And Jason Bateman is always hilarious. And I dug this like setup because we do game nights, and I feel like they're not this serious, but I can see how it could go there. And I love their relationships, like as friends and, you know, as couples, and there was just so many twists and turns. I loved it.
For me, like as far as the straight comedy goes, best of the year for what I watched. So I love that pick. Dan, do you see Game Night?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's probably my wife's favorite movie of the year. It's also, I think, probably the best date night movie, and just a great action comedy that we don't get nearly enough of. So
agreed. For my number one film, has not been talked about yet, but I really enjoyed my time with it. I didn't know what to expect going in. Kind of has some connections to a couple of the other films that I've listed off, and apparently I have one of my new favorite actors going in John David Washington. I'm talking about BlacKkKlansman, and I cannot get over, first off, just as an aside, I cannot get over how much John David Washington and Denzel Washington have the same voice. It's almost distracting to me to a point, because if you're not watching the screen, it's Denzel talking, but it's actually his son talking, and they have the same tone, the same intonation, the same pacing. It's like literally they're the same person when they speak, but obviously it's a different person. But this film, again, in our day and time, with everything that's going on with race relations and whatnot, I think Spike Lee definitely is back on top of his game, and I was very impressed by this whole situation. It's such a bizarre and almost comedic setup, as you have an African American being inducted into the KKK, and kind of how that works, and like a lot of movies that we've talked about, kind of a movie that has a lot of different emotions all in one. So you have some very comedic moments, you have some very tense moments, you have some very, gut-wrenching dramatic moments. So I think it kind of takes you through a journey where you're experiencing all kinds of stuff. I can see how some people might have an issue with the ending kind of montage being a maybe for some people out of place, but I think it just hits home because it does such a good job for me of taking a film that is obviously set in past decades, that you're like, it's easy for people to say when we're talking about racism or when we're talking about civil rights and stuff like that they always want to place that in the past, and they always want to be like, oh yeah, people were crazy back then. And this movie does a good job of kind of bringing it back full circle and being like, no, people are still crazy today. I mean, I know a lot of us know that kind of are intelligent and keep up with things and whatnot, but it's just like, hey, no, this same type of mentality is still happening today, and it's a very important movie. And at the end of the year, just took over Annihilation for my number one spot. That is BlacKkKlansman. Matt, do you want to real quick run down your 10 through 1 in case people forgot, and then we'll circle back and get any honorable mentions that anybody wants to throw out.
All right, going from 10 down, I got The House with the Clock in Its Walls, Isle of Dogs, Ocean's 8, Venom, Little Italy, Solo, A Star Wars Story, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Avengers Infinity War, Black Panther, and Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse. I accidentally wrote Spider-Man into the Spider-Man on mine.
Dan, what do you got?
I have Private Life, The Death of Stalin, Spider-Man into the Spider-Man verse. 7 is Leave No Trace. Won't You Be My Neighbor? 5 is Avengers Infinity War. First Man. Number 3 is Roma, The Rider. And then number 1, I have Blind Spotting.
Amanda?
I need to make a correction. I was right with Life Itself. That's the movie we just watched with Oscar Isaac, right?
Yes.
So I was correct.
Okay.
You looked at me funny, and I thought I fucking panicked, and I'm like, wait, that's the movie that Dan was talking about.
Oh, no. I didn't mean to throw you off.
You did.
So what's your 10
I'll just
through
blame
1?
you anyways. So my 10 through 1 is Annihilation, Predator, Hotel Artemis, A Quiet Place, Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, Crimes of Grindelwald, and This Life Itself, which I liked because it was very much like A Place Beyond the Pines, which also is one of my faves. And my number 2 was A Woman Walks Ahead. Number 1 is Game Night.
All right. My number 10 was Can You Ever Forgive Me? If Beale Street Could Talk, Leave No Trace, Please Stand By, Bad Times at the El Royale, Blind Spotting, A Quiet Place, A Star Is Born, Annihilation, and my number 1 was Black Klansman. Matt, dying to know what didn't make your list.
So there's 2 that didn't make the list. One I've mentioned, I don't know, half dozen times. That's The Grinch. It was number 12 worthy on a list of 12. Let's say that much. My number 11 was a movie I watched last night at roughly midnight. Was on my most anticipated list, if you can believe it, at number, can't find it, whatever, like 20. It was Robin Hood. What are they doing with that one? I mean, it's not bad. It's got some problematic elements to it, to be sure. Ben Mendelsohn is just playing Orson Krennic again, which is good because he's good at that job. Like, I like him in a suit. I don't know why he's wearing like a 3-piece suit in like the 13th century. Oh, also 13th century. I don't know. That's when the Third Crusade was. But also, like, I mean, the time they like open up with like in a time that we're not going to say the year of, and then like it's all like, hey, we're during the Third Crusade, and it's like, oh, well, that's a very Googleable thing. And then like you Google that and it's like that happened in like the 12th century. And then like they got like springs and shit. It's like those didn't happen. Like, I don't know, man. It's weird. It's not terrible. It's better than The Grinch. I mean, I said that much. I just like, I don't know. There hasn't been a good Robin Hood movie in a while, huh, guys?
Oh, that is a for sure thing. We watched this too the other day, and it was all over the place. Like, what was going on with that film? It was better than Mortal Engines, though. I'll give it that much.
Oh man, I want to see that.
Don't.
Amanda.
Actually, I like right before we started recording, or you mean right before, like we were at I was doing grocery shopping at Walmart before we started recording, and while I was waiting for my wife at one point, I was reading the Mortal Engines book, and it wasn't that bad.
I'm not sure if the book's good or not, but the movie is not so good.
Oh no.
So Amanda, honorable mentions. What didn't make your list?
Only the Brave, Bad Times at El Royale, Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, Aquaman, Kodachrome, Deadpool 2, Fahrenheit 457. And I didn't know if I could do this or not. I didn't really just include it was like, I don't know if it was a movie or a show. It was The Haunting of Hill House, because there was episodes.
I'm not familiar with what that is.
Yeah, it's a show on Netflix.
So it wasn't a movie, but if it was a movie, it would have been my fucking number 1.
Your number 1?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice.
I've heard great things about it.
Dan, what missed your list?
A bunch, actually. Yeah. 8th Grade was really close to making my top 10. I mentioned Minding the Gap already. Mission Impossible Fallout, which I think straight action films was pretty phenomenal. First Reformed was up there. Island Dogs, Black Panther, the Korean film Burning. Probably the best family film of the year, Paddington 2. Another really great coming of age film. Actually, I think it's still streaming on Amazon Prime. Lean on Pete, which is kind of devastating to watch. And Omen in the Gun. Matt, if you like heist films, I think that's a great one for Robert Redford. And also talking about heist, American Animals, which is, I think, not getting much love. I think I probably like that movie a lot more than most. It's directed by the man the guy who did The Imposter, which is one of my favorite documentaries of the decade, and it's kind of deconstructs the kind of the glorification of the heist movie in a way, but does it in an entertaining way. And then Black Klansman, as you mentioned, is up there. Can You Ever Forgive Me? El Royale. Yeah. So I'm actually just gonna post everything I watch rank lists on Letterboxd, and people can see it there. So
nice. My list will be posted there as well. I think it's got 110 films or so, and I got them all ranked up there. But my 20 through 11, just real quick, was Operation Finale, Thoroughbreds, Woman Walks Ahead, like Amanda had, Hotel Artemis was also on Amanda's list, Minding the Gap, which I'm gonna ask Amanda about real quick in a second, Kodachrome, Beautiful Boy, Game Night, First Man, and I think I'm the only person that enjoyed this film, but The Legacy of a White-tailed Deer Hunter I found pretty funny. Amanda, Minding the Gap, showing up on a lot of people's top 10 lists, a lot of people's best documentaries. It's up for Oscars, etc. What did you think of that? I know a couple people that I talked to were interested in some of our takes since we live in the town of, or next to the town, or you lived in the town where it was filmed. You know some of the people involved in the film. What was your take on Minding the Gap?
It was not easy to watch. It's a lot of the stuff is a lot of the circles that I ran with when I was younger. And I was never like a skateboarder kid, but I always had skateboarder friends. They were always filming. They're always out, you know, trying to just be a skater. You know what I mean? Like, it was a total lifestyle, and it's huge in this area, especially with it being you know, sort of prohibited in some areas. I feel like it tests people to try to push this envelope and put themselves out there and really make it a whole lifestyle, because you have to commit like that. And it also shows in a lot of the generation that's mine now in their work ethic and what jobs they're in, and the mindset that they have. And a lot of this I had to really work to get away from. And it was weird seeing it from this point of view, seeing it depicted here this way, instead of just watching my friends go through this, and trying not to be some of those stereotypes that we're seeing in this film, and working really hard to just get out of that culture and to you know, move past it as an adult, because so many of them just get stuck in that same, you know, mindset, which we do see in the film. And I think that it's very representative of Rockford and Rockford youth, especially in that generation. You know, the few connections that I have to this film, they're not, you know, they're not feel good things. One of a lot of the archival footage was put together by a few people, and one of those, I call him a kid because he was a kid when I, you know, first met him, and he recently passed away because he was still into this lifestyle and decided to take some LSD, and then, you know, his parents find him dead in his room in the morning. This was just not even a month ago. And his dad, like, is a chef at one of the restaurants here in town that's kind of like a premier dining place, and it's JMK Nippon. And he even like cooked for me on my birthday one time, like really happy, nice people, and just like stuff like this is happening all over. And then to see, you know, also on the other turn of the coin is a kid that used to just be a kid that hung around with my group, and now he's made a huge documentary that's getting all kinds of buzz. And I hardly even said two words to the kid because he was so quiet and reserved and just always filming, and, you know, kind of dealing. Now that you see what he was going through, you see the reason why he was the way he was, because what he was dealing with.
Was it surreal for you to see a film that took place in areas that you recognize, streets and buildings that you knew and grew up with, and that nature? Or was it just kind of like, oh, I know that place?
It's hard to say, because you see those things every day. You see these same places all the time. You see these people doing things that you yourself have done in these places. And it's kind of surreal, because I don't know, maybe if I would have seen it in the movie theater, it would have been different, besides seeing it at my house, because you see that in commercials for the news, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like those same places now. So it's a little, I don't know, it's different.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing that. I know, like I said, a couple people were interested in our perspective, but I don't have the same perspective as you did because I didn't necessarily know the people and I didn't grow up in that exact same area. The closest I could be is, hey, one of our work or our work meetings are always next to this one skate park, and I see people skating out there, but I didn't. That's the most I had.
That's like right by your house,
right?
Yeah.
So, thanks for sharing with that, Matt.
Oh man, I did not know about that movie at all, and I didn't know that Bing did it. Like, did you know that? Like, I ran with Bing for quite a while. Like,
no, I did not.
I actually like if you go on my old Vimeo account, there's a story I did a video that Nate and I did 11 years ago, where Bing was the first commenter, and he's like, "Man, Matt's good in this part." Like he commented on my acting over a decade ago. It's nuts that he's out there making an award-winning movie and stuff. Like.
Yeah, let's hope he can, do some more stuff here.
Yeah, he's always been good. What you said me before? What? Hi.
Oh, I don't remember what I was saying you for. So that is our list for 2018. Dan's going to put his list on Letterboxd. Mine will be as well. Amanda might put her list on there too if she has time, but she's super busy, so maybe not. I don't know. So that's our top films of 2018. We're going to have some more content with you as far as some movie awards as we kind of go through the awards season, and Dan and I might be throwing some extra content at you as well, because we are getting close to wrapping up an entire decade. So there's a lot of stuff to think about when we're doing that type of look back and retrospective. So everybody just quickly give out your Twitter information if people have questions on any of the films in your top 10 or questions for you in general. Amanda, what's your Twitter?
You can find me at Hard Candy Mandy, eyes, no eyes.
Matt?
I'm at Fridley Scent.
Dan?
I'm at Movie Revolt.
And I am at Optimus Solo, or you can tweet the show at Cinema Geekcast. That's it for us for this week. Tune in next time for another chance to listen to the Cinema Geeks.
Oh,
oh my God.